by the end of this module, you understand how you can stop Chinese manufacturers from stealing your ideas and understand some of the processes you can put in place to mitigate some of the risks when sourcing in China with your hard-earned design. So picture the scene. You've spent months working on a product, you've refined it, conducted your market research, produced a product specification, and spent hours dealing with suppliers, discussing designs, costs, and you possibly might have invested in some tooling. You've spent countless sleepless nights toing and froing with the supplier and have invented a product that looks good and it's truly unique. Now, you're feeling pretty pleased with yourself that you've gotten to this stage whereby you have possibly a product in hand. You've got it on sale on Amazon and you log in to check the latest sales. But wait, what's that? Your new product, your baby just with a slight rebrand, is listed right next to your now not so unique love child. Your manufacturer's gone round your back and started to sell their own version of your product, cutting you out of the loop completely. Now, you've heard the horror stories and you've seen the knockoffs, and you may have even heard of the iPhone shoes that I recently found on the internet. You guessed it, they're some of the off-brand goods found in China. Now, this video will discuss one of the best ways to protect yourself when dealing in China and what techniques you can implement to ensure that your product ideas are not absorbed into the latest catalogues of your chosen Chinese manufacturers. How would we usually do this in the Western world? Now, in the Western world, we use what's known as an NDA. An NDA protects your confidential information in development, which is great in development. However, once we get the information into the outside world, once you start to sell your product, then that confidential information becomes less important. It's at this point that the NDA that you had with your manufacturer falls apart. And you can see why. An NDA will not protect a scrupulous manufacturer from turning their product around and making yours. So instead, when making products in China, we need to use what's known as an NNN agreement. Now, an NNN agreement protects your business and idea throughout your relationship with your Chinese manufacturer. It requires them to keep your confidential information secret. It requires that they don't use the information themselves, and it stops them from circumnavigating you and producing your product for either themselves or anyone else without financial penalties. So what does the NNN in NNN agreement stand for? There are three elements to this. Non-disclosure. This means that your counterparty in China cannot disclose any confidential information that you provided to them. Then there's non-use. This means that the counterparty cannot use your IP for any other purposes other than for your benefit under the contract. And again, non-circumvention. This means that your manufacturing partner may not circumvent you or your company and sell directly to your customers. This is usually done at a lower price than what you are selling, as the manufacturer has not invested all the time and resources that you have into marketing and building the business. Within an agreement, it contains both parties that you and your manufacturer in China. It lists out what's meant by confidential information, what's included in the non-disclosure, non-use, and non-circumvention terms. It lists out what happens when a manufacturer is requested to return, destroy, or transfer materials or tools, the parties involved in the agreement, and what the financial penalties are in the event of breaches to those terms. It's signed by both you, the buyer's company, and the manufacturer, and then using the Chinese company's CHOP, that's the stamp. Now, if you at this point in your manufacturing endeavor in China, and even if you're not producing a component that you have significantly developed, it's always useful to have a Chinese NNN agreement in your arsenal of documents, as without it, manufacturers may use your brand, logo, and details in any way they want. And if you want to use our NNN agreement, and I'll leave a link below to where you can find it. So, when should you be sending your manufacturer your NNN agreement? Now, once you've decided that you want to work with a certain manufacturer, you should ask them if they are willing to sign this sort of document. Now, any manufacturer who's reservations about working under this sort of contract or not following an NNN should really be avoided. It's a bit of a red flag. Remember that in China, You should be protecting everything at every opportunity. So getting an NNN signed before you start to send detailed information around the design is imperative. That's not to say that you should be getting a supplier to sign an NNN agreement before sending an RFQ to them. Of course, in some instances, this may be an idea, but in the vast majority of cases, an RFQ needs to hold just enough information for a rough ballpark figure of a quote, but not hold enough information for a supplier to copy your designs. Now, this is sometimes a fine balancing act, as a supplier may request more information to accurately quote, and it's quite possibly the right time at this moment that you clarify that you want and indeed need an NNN signing. Now, if you're in the process of developing a product and you need to know where to start, then this video here will help you design, iterate, and construct your product specification, which is a must when working in China. Until next time, bye.